So Iran's foreign minister has just announced that the Strait of Hormuz has been opened to all commercial vessels passing through. This is until the ceasefire, which will last until April 22nd. And we're here with Saqib today. Saqib, that's one of the important concerns of these talks as well that's now been resolved, along with the Lebanon ceasefire, and then also the question of the nuclear weapon. Yeah. So what does this mean, and how well on track are we now to fully resolve this issue?
I think this has been the most important news since the war began. Opening the strait, I think it didn't just affect Pakistan, Iran or the Americans, it impacted the whole world. So for the world to hear that the strait has been opened, I think that is a very important news. In terms of the negotiations, I think when the negotiations began, there were a lot of chatter about 10 demands, 6 demands, 4 out of 10 being met. But I think the 3 most important issues that came out from the press talks of J.D. Vance and even the Iranians were 3 issues. One was Lebanon, the ceasefire. The other one was, as you mentioned, Strait of Hormuz, and the third one being the nuclear one. The nuclear issue, I think President Trump yesterday said that Iran has agreed not to build a nuclear weapon. So probably one issue was out of the way. Now the Strait of Hormuz has been announced that it will be open. And the third one, the Lebanon ceasefire, I think it has also taken, it got into force last night. So all 3 contentious issues are almost over. So what's left is signing a deal. So probably we are very closer to achieving a historic Pakistan brokered US-Iran deal. And it's going to be massive. It happens in Islamabad. And using that opportunity, if there is an opportunity to sign a deal, do you think Trump is going to come to Pakistan, or probably other regional leaders like MBS or Erdogan? Would they come to Pakistan for signing the deal?
I mean, Trump has certainly said so. He said it very explicitly yesterday that if a deal is to be signed, and if it's signed in Pakistan, that he would want to be there. And I think what's interesting also is to note the positivity and the excitement that we're seeing in Trump's tone suddenly. I think, I don't know what to make of his recent post on Truth Social, but it seems like he's thanking the Iranians. And even yesterday, while talking about the Lebanese ceasefire, it seems like he's very much on track to make sure that these issues are resolved before they sit down for the next round of talks. And I wouldn't be surprised if other leaders do join in these talks as well. I mean, of course, Pakistan is the key facilitator, but Pakistan has been on a tour of various different stakeholders, especially Saudi, Qatar, Turkey, and I think their voice in this also matters. And it would only be better maybe for long-lasting peace if these parties are also involved.
I agree with you. I think everybody would want a seat at the table, considering the magnitude of this event. Iran and US talking to each other after around 40 years and probably ending a conflict that has endangered the whole world. Trump talked about wiping the whole civilization, and if that conflict is going to end, then everybody would want to be part of the photo frame. Everybody would want to shrug their shoulder and be a part of that frame. So it's a historic event, and the best thing for Pakistan is that Pakistan is going to be brokering. And I was reading the news, and Pakistan's provincial assembly, one of the provincial assemblies, they've passed a resolution recommending Nobel Peace Prize for the CDF and the Prime Minister. And if that were to happen, and if Pakistan were to broker the ceasefire, I think that's pretty much on the cards, no?
Do you think then maybe Trump would also nominate either the CDF or Shahbaz Sharif, given that Shahbaz Sharif had nominated him before?
I wouldn't be very hopeful of that, because Trump would want the Nobel Prize for himself. But considering the fact that President Trump was the one who initiated this conflict, who initiated the war, and now he's the one who's going to end this war, I don't think Nobel Peace Committee would be that much considerate. And also he's been very vocal against the committee. But for Pakistan to bring this conflict to an end, I think if that doesn't get you a Nobel Peace Prize, then I don't know what else can you do.
And the other big news right now, and I think people might be interested in knowing, is that oil prices have already dropped 10%. And do you think we might see some kind of relief in the recent measures that were being taken in Pakistan as well, to preserve electricity and energy?
I think it remains to be seen, because when the prices rose, I think the Pakistan government, they announced that they will the government decided not to increase the prices any further. There was a decrease in the prices of diesel and gasoline. So, but since then the prices have increased, and Pakistani government hasn't passed on the burden on the people. So, if there is a decrease in price, then we expect that it might take a few days or weeks. But eventually, when the price comes down to $80 a barrel or $70 a barrel, then I think we can see that the price returning to the pre-war rate. But I think the most important thing right now is not the price of petrol. I think it's the provision of LNG. I think Pakistan's contract with Qatar, after the attack on Qatar's facilities, they declared a force majeure. So they need some time to reopen their facilities. So once it happens, I think I read somewhere that it might take them a week or two to reopen their facility and start processing LNG. So when they start doing that and the Hormuz is open, then I think Pakistan will see a resumption of LNG import, and that will also help in decreasing the load shedding that is going on right now in the country.
So that's a series of good news, but the next question is, when will the next round of negotiations or the conclusion of this?
What do you think?
So we're hearing next week, although yesterday at the press briefer at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, there was no confirmation as for the time and venue. But of course, Trump gave us a big hint yesterday that, there is no other option than Pakistan as the venue where these talks will take place. But Islamabad has gone into tight security just now, and we're hearing that for the next 10 days, security will remain on high alert. So let's see. But at least one thing we know for sure, that Pakistan will be the center again.
Absolutely. And the statements coming from Trump and the Iranian side that Pakistan is going to be the venue and Pakistan are the only mediators, I think that confirms the fact that these talks are going to happen in Islamabad. But also, about the dates, I think nobody can tell you right now about the dates of the talks, because there are a lot of variables. You have to convince the Iranians, then you have to convince President Trump, then probably if you want to bring in President Erdogan or MBS, then you would want to talk to them, and then there are a lot of minute details that need to be ironed out. So it might need time, it might need a lot of diplomacy from Pakistani side, but I think once all those wrinkles are ironed out, then we might have a final date. And as President Trump said, it could be the end of the weekend as well. So you never know.
But the other issue that I would like to bring up is the case of the ceasefire in Lebanon. I mean, there has been ceasefire before between Israel and Lebanon as well, which hasn't really held. And I don't think Israel has a plan to fully withdraw from there either. Do you think that could become an issue again?
I think Hezbollah, they've been on board. They've said that they will abide by the ceasefire. So if that happens, and Israel also holds the ceasefire, then I think there won't be any issue. I think the main demand from the Iranian side was that the ceasefire has to be across the board. And if Israel has agreed to it, and it's almost guaranteed by the US, then I don't think there won't be any major issue. I think last night they did pound Beirut, but since midnight, I think there hasn't been any attack. So if the US is guaranteeing that Israel will behave, there won't be any issue.
And the next question, of course, is still that of the Strait of Hormuz. Iran wants complete control over it, and I think that's what the talks will decide. And they've also asked for reparations and for cessation of all hostilities in the Middle East.
Yeah, that is a very complicated question, and I don't know if anybody would have an answer for that, because it would need buy-in from all the sides. So, for example, Strait of Hormuz issue is not between the US and Iran. It's also between Iran, UAE, Saudi Arabia, and several other countries in the region. And none of those countries, especially the Gulf countries, they would never want that Iran is the country that is in control of the Hormuz, especially after what has happened recently. So it would need a lot of negotiations. It might take them 1 year, 2 years, or even 3 years to come up with a solution to patrol Strait of Hormuz, or at least a decision on who gets to decide about the fate of Strait of Hormuz. So it's a very complicated question. It will be like the negotiations on nuclear issue, as JCPOA took 2 years to negotiate. So Strait of Hormuz issue is also somewhat nuclear.
Right. Yeah. In any case, these are all good news. Good news is to end our discussion on, and we'll be waiting for the talks to happen here in Islamabad, and you should stay tuned to stay along with us.